Hello and welcome to the first video on my channel. I'm the Research Pod, and as you can probably tell from my channel's description, I'm a fan of Undertale and Deltarune. I had the luxury of playing both all of Undertale and the 2 of 7 currently available Deltarune chapters completely blind when they first came out. Something I consider myself very lucky for, as these games have blown up so much online, it's nearly impossible to play them without being 100% spoiled for their content nowadays. To say Toby Fox's work has had a massive impact on gaming and media as a whole would be a major understatement. He changed and continues to change indie games and the way we perceive interactive media as a whole, and personally some of my all-time favorite gaming-related memories are thanks to my initial obligatory Undertale phase everyone who plays that game goes through. Undertale means a lot to me, and even though I'm on the side of the fanbase that prefers Deltarune, to say Undertale isn't as good is just plain wrong. I'll always love it, and it's in my top 10 games of all time easily. It's a huge cliche for this community to non-stop recommend the game, but honestly, if you even have a mild interest in Undertale and what's currently available for Deltarune, please play them, it's worth it. But anyways, back to the topic. Today we're looking at Deltarune, what a surprise. Obviously you've seen the title and thumbnail, you know what the video's about, so let's just jump right into it. Here's my theory on why Asriel is the angel in Deltarune. Just as a quick recap, Deltarune's overall plot or goal is guided by this thing called the Prophecy, told to us by this goat guy named Ralsei. The Prophecy, in simplified terms, basically tells us that there's two worlds. The light world, where our main characters Chris and Susie come from. It's the normal world. In it is hometown, where our focus family, the Dreamers, reside. Ex-police chief Asgore, his ex-wife Toriel, their son Asriel, who's off to college with a plan to return to hometown on Friday, and their adopted teenager Chris, the main protagonist and only human in hometown. The Dark Worlds are alternate realities made up of objects in an area that are given life when they're sucked into something called a fountain, a massive beam of light that acts as a portal to the Dark World from the Light World, created by both a mystery character known as the Roaring Knight, or also any Lightner, the name of beings of the Light World, as opposed to the Dark World's Darkners, with an above-average power of determination or will when they stab a weapon into the ground. Light and dark power exists in a harmonic balance, but if the balance is ruined by too many Dark Worlds being opened via fountain creation, a terrible calamity known as the Roaring will take place. In this scenario, 3 titans will rise from the fountains to destroy the Earth, but just as the Earth draws its final breath, the 3 heroes, a human, a monster, and a prince from the dark, will appear at World's Edge, the point at which light and dark worlds meet, to banish the Angel's Heaven, restoring balance and saving the world. So that's the game's plot. The human Chris, the monster, their friend Susie, and the dark prince Ralsei, a Darkner, must go on an adventure across the Dark Worlds to seal the fountains and prevent the Roaring. And if push comes to shove, which, come on, we know it will, we'll have to defeat the Knight in a post-Roaring reality and banish the Angel's Heaven to give ourselves our happy ending. Toby Fox loves to make his games all about mystery and subverting expectations. These RPGs have choice-based consequences leading to different outcomes and endings, most famously with Undertale's iconic pacifist and genocide routes, as well as the 90+ neutral routes. Holy shit, Toby. And, more recently, Deltarune Chapter 2's weird Snowgrave route, in which you, the player, who by the way, in case you weren't aware, has taken over and is controlling Chris like a puppet through their soul, psychologically and physically manipulate Chris's friend Noelle into using her Dark World ice powers to freeze everyone to death, including her best friend Birdly, and once it's all over, convincing her it was just a dream. How nice. But, with someone like Toby Fox, who's changed gaming as a whole with his creepy and unique story designs, naturally an element of mystery is shrouded all over Undertale and Deltarune. The overarching antagonist of Deltarune, the Undertale character Dr. W.D. Gaster, or Wingdings Gaster after the font he uses to speak, is only spoken of and hinted at through secrets in both games, as well as cryptic hidden messages and audio files left in the physical code of the game's files. So if you weren't in the know about how secretive and deep delving the story of Deltarune is, there's a tiny fraction of it. This cryptic nature loops right back into Deltarune's prophecy. The entire underplot of Deltarune behind the scenes is very eerie and creative. Noel's sister, December Holiday, or Des for short, has gone missing by getting pulled into and lost within the game's code itself. We aren't sure why the being who is most likely our famed 666 marked man who has ripped through time and space himself Gaster has made us take control over Chris, or what his end goal is. Susie's home life is a mystery. Ralsei, just like Undertale's antagonist Flowey, seems to have knowledge he's in a game and is trying to force us into doing the set-in-stone, correct path to the ending. All sorts of stuff. And the prophecy is no different. Obviously, as mentioned before, the identity of the Roaring Knight is still completely unknown, as is their motive. And obviously the topic of discussion for this video, the identity of the angel and its heaven is pretty much up in the air. But pretty much isn't completely. And with the angel, we do have a few hints. For starters, we need to understand that Deltarune is Toby Fox's magnum opus. Years ago, Fox had a fever dream induced from being incredibly sick, and as an Earthbound fan, which is an amazing game by the way, go play it, with some minor coding skills thanks to his famous Earthbound Halloween hack, he wanted to take his inspiration from Earthbound and make his own game. This game was Deltarune, but after working on it shortly, Toby gave up. He wasn't prepared for the daunting task of a 7-chapter epic, so instead Toby started off smaller. Toby Fox made a game to test himself to get ready for the right team and skills to make Deltarune. Toby Fox made Undertale, a game which ended up blowing apart the internet and has had a massive chokehold on it and indie games as a whole since, much to the fear of Fox. But that's besides the point. The point is Undertale's characters and themes are rough, watered-down ideas for story beats and concepts within Deltarune, which we see taking full form with each new chapter release, especially Chapter 2, wow. With this being said, we can look to Undertale to help work out some kinks in Deltarune's plot, and a major part of Undertale is the prophecy called the Deltarune, just as it is in Deltarune the game. Undertale, in short, is about a human named Frisk falling into a deep hole below the surface where a bunch of monsters reside known as the Underground, with their goal being to collect one more of the 7 human souls needed to break the magic barrier placed on the Underground, blocking them from the surface in a war long ago. In Undertale's version of the Deltarune prophecy, it is said that a figure known as the Angel is a being who existed in the Underground and left, only to return in the future to dispel the barrier and restore balance between humans and monsters. The identity of the Angel in Undertale depends on which route you do. If you kill everyone in the genocide route, the Angel is Kara, the first human to fall to the Underground with a hatred for their own kind, adopted by Monster King and Queen Asgore and Toriel, and best friends with their son Asriel. Kara died in a failed attempt to end their life and escape the Underground, and came back as a demon at the end of the genocide route, summoned via the player's desire to be a horrible person and kill everyone in the game just for the sake of seeing what would happen. A demon born of morbid curiosity. The game's best ending, in which Frisk befriends everyone and escapes with them to the surface, is the pacifist route. The angel on this outcome is Asriel Dreamer, who died to humans when burying Kara's body in the surface, having their ashes spread across a golden flower bed in the Underground. And after a flower from that bed was injected with determination, the essence of strong will, became Flowey, a sentient flower with the power to manipulate your game's save data, who was completely void of emotions. At the end of the pacifist route, Flowey absorbs the souls of every monster in the Underground and turns into the god of hyperdeath, Asriel Dreamer, with his ultimate form being that of an angelic being in the same shape as the Deltarune prophecy. Being an undead figure, after being saved by Frisk, Asriel stays behind soulless in the Underground, turning back into Flowey once again. This time his sense of self returned. Now, let's jump over to Deltarune the game and its version of the prophecy. The parallels obviously are clear as day, the separation of humans and monsters living in balance. We see when Chris and Susie jump into a dark world, they fall into it, implying these alternate worlds are located beneath the light world, a perfect similarity between Undertale's surface and Underground, as well as balance and existence of Lightners and Darkners. Something that is a little messy is that in Undertale only humans lived on the surface, and in Deltarune every Lightner is a monster except for Chris. This reason is not yet being explained in the story, but we can save this tidbit because no monsters are Darkners. Darkners are all beings created from objects present in an area in which a fountain was created. Examples include the King and Javelin Chapter 1 being created from the King and Joker playing cards on the floor of the abandoned classroom where the first Dark Fountain was born, or Spamton being created from a discarded spam email inside the computer lab where Chapter 2's fountain was located. Let's look at the big parallel, and the one that got me to craft this whole thing in the first place. In Deltarune, a major plot element is that Chris has become very sad and quiet since their brother Asriel has left for college, with Asriel's return to hometown coming at the end of the week Deltarune takes place in. Undertale's Angel, who need I remind you is that game's version of Asriel, is a being who existed in the underground, left, and then returned to destroy the barrier between the surface and the underground. Deltarune's Asriel has started in hometown, left for college, and is soon returning to hometown. Now let's solve the minor holes in this comparison and use them to lead into the next part of it. The big hole is that in Undertale, Asriel returns to the underground from the underground, which we know is a parallel to the Dark World in Deltarune, not the Light World where hometown resides. But here's the thing. The Dark World is made up of elements of the Light World giving meaning and physical, literal life. As is stated by the theme of the game, the beauty of fiction is the mesh of fantasy and reality. The prophecy is intertwined with the Light World. Of course, the lore and legend of the Dark World is going to be crafted using elements of the Light World. Hometown has religion they worship in Deltarune. We don't know anything about it except for one detail. It worships an angel. And the church in which this angel is worshipped is a location that was frequented by Chris and the Dreamers, which includes Asriel. The antics of Chris and Asriel's time at the Church of the Angel are mentioned directly in the game, where they would spend all of communion just drinking the fruit juice. And because Deltarune and Undertale love their religious symbolism, if you didn't know, communion is an event in religions worshipping God in which participants eat bread and drink wine, symbolic of the body and blood of Jesus Christ. Keep the religious symbolism in the back of your mind. We'll come back to this. So we know that the Dark World has pulled its prophecy of the angel from the Church of the Angel in the Light World, a place where Asriel knows at the back of their hand. Well, something else worth noting about the Dark Worlds is that they create exaggerated versions of things they pull from the Light World and give life to. Susie is a prime example of how Lightners are given appearances and traits based on their emotions and social status. Susie on the outside is a brute, violent, dangerous bully who is always threatening to beat people up and being overall rebellious. But on the inside, as she opens up, it's revealed Susie is a good person. She's simply projecting attitude based off her home life, which seems to be terrible. She appears to be underfed, eating anything including chalk from school and milk from an alley. And it's even up into the air as whether she has a home or if she's homeless. Light World Susie, or normal Susie, is purple with baggy clothes. In the Dark World, her outfit is black, she has big boots on, spiked wrist rings, and her weapon is a giant axe. On the outside, she's mean, but her skin changes to pink, a color commonly associated with kindness and softness. She's nice on the inside. Talk to any NPC in hometown about Asriel, and they won't shut up about how good of a person he is. He's polite and caring, always helping others out if they need, and he's friends with absolutely everyone. So close, in fact, he's referred to as Azzy and not Asriel by most people, and he seems to get on very well in the dating scene. Various NPCs talk about positive interactions between Asriel and the women he's dated and or gotten the attention of. He's the stereotype perfect child. In Chris and Asriel's room, Chris's area is bleak and bland with empty shelves. Asriel's side of the room is exploding with badges and awards and fancy trophies, and the game makes it seem as though Chris is both jealous and ashamed that they're the family outcast, being the only human and the adopting sibling to their immensely successful brother. Let's jump back to that religious symbolism from earlier. In the Bible, goats are representative of witchcraft and Satan, with Lucifer himself being a fallen angel sent to hell after wanting to usurp God's power. In Undertale, when the angel returns, when Asriel returns, they come back as a fallen angel, a twisted version of themselves with great power. Asriel becomes selfish, wanting power to himself, the self-described god of hyperdeath. How do you get to the Dark World upon entering a fountain? You fall, and your emotions and social status are turned to reality. Asriel most likely has a lot of unfair expectations placed on him by the Dreamers to keep being the perfect poster child. He wants to succeed, and he wants to be on top. The angel leaves, returns, and destroys the barrier. Deltarune states in a post-roaring world, 3 heroes appear at World's Edge, the location where the barrier between the light and dark world is split, to banish the angel's heaven and restore the balance. The Bible states that the rapture will have 7 years of tribulation, 7 days till the roaring, an event in which, just like the rapture, the earth is destroyed, replace God with Deltarune's titans, and we have a cut and clear parallel between the religious symbolism in Deltarune as well as its roaring prophecy. Asriel falls to the Dark World, just like how Lucifer fell to hell. He becomes a twisted, fallen angel, thanks to the physical power he's given from his revered status in the Light World. Oh, and what does Jevil, a character who knows the prophecy's secrets, say? Hell's roar bubbles from the depths. Lightners, can you stop it? A comparison between hell, the roaring prophecy, and the depths. And guess who's located in the depths? The character tied to the number 666 and is pulling the strings behind Deltarune's entire story, Dr. W.D. Gaster. I said earlier that goats are associated with the devil and hell. Asriel is a goat and is soon to be fallen angel, the same as the one and only Lucifer in religion. Now, I'm not saying Deltarune's story is a complete parallel to religious concepts and stories. What I'm saying is we know that both Undertale and Deltarune are full of religious symbolism, and with the explicit ties to 666 and all the stuff like IC being referred to as a demon in Deltarune's dialogue, we know that themes and concepts of hell, the devil, angels, and heaven are present, all of which have been stated by name within the games. Once again, as an example, Gaster, the man who is tied to the number 666, is lost in the depths, which is referred to as hell in the game by Jevil, a character who has spoken to Gaster and is aware of the fictitious nature of Deltarune as a video game and the overarching story of it. Oh, and if you want one more parallel, the sons of Adam and Eve, who we'll call Asgore and Toriel, were Cain and Abel, who gave sacrifices to God. But God preferred Abel's offerings over Cain's, so Cain killed Abel. Cain and Abel. Chris and Asriel. Asriel being a perfect person with amazing gifts to give, and Chris, their rejected lesser brother, jealous of Asriel's perfection. We have to banish the angels' heaven. If Asriel is the angel, Chris is going to have to kill them to destroy heaven, their power. A brother killing their better off brother out of jealousy and a desire to be seen in a better light by their superiors. Deltarune is not a direct parallel of biblical concepts, but it is littered with religious words and symbols tied within its own story and locations. It's not a direct parallel, it's symbolic. The tale of an ancient word which speaks about what I believe is one brother having to kill another for a seemingly greater good, but unknowingly doing the bidding of the real showrunner and being deceived out of their control. So that's why I believe Asriel Dreamer is going to be the angel in Deltarune. What do you all think? Is this plausible? Or is it another standard insane Deltarune fan theory with some very bizarre coincidences a la Spooky Dude's Woody theory? But either way, that's the fun of trying to predict the ending of a game with 7 chapters when only the second chapter is the farthest along we have, isn't it? If you all got this far into the video, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you want to see more crazy crackpot Deltarune theories of mine, and I'll see you all next time.